clean and renewable called nuclear energy. In France, 4 out of 5 houses are powered by nuclear energy. In America, 1 out of 5. And yet it is clean and it is renewable. I would also push my North American energy platform towards natural gas, building the Kingston pipeline and developing American energy reserves will give us a very strong economy, and we need to move forward on it. Thank you.
Ray, obviously, nobody wants to destroy our water and our air for our children and grandchildren. But we've lost the balance. The liberal agenda has thrown us out of balance over the last 30 or 40 years. My question is, where's Congress? When the president couldn't get cap and trade a few years ago passed, he turned around and told the EPA to kill coal, and they did in a year. And the problem with that is there were unintended consequences that through various industries decimated them for years in terms of making these long-term decisions to provide power. And I come back to why that's important. It's one of the fundamental building blocks to economic growth, economic development. Nobody wants to destroy our environment, but right now we are out of balance. I've been waiting for a national energy policy since the first gas line I stood in 1973. And I just think it's time to get an outside perspective to bring change and to get this thing working for the first time. We have got a God-given boon in natural resources that can drive us economically for the next 100 or 200 years if we just get bad government policy out of the way.
I started my political activism as a conservationist, actually fighting for hunters' rights, gun owners' rights, and scientific-based conservation. I'm a scientist, I'm a medical doctor. But what's happening is that the radical environmentalists have taken over the conservation and environmental movement, and it has become very politicized. In fact, this administration, as well as the previous administration, bought into this idea of human-induced global warming. We don't have any scientific consensus about that. And in fact, there are over 1,000 scientists that think that that is not factual. But the EPA is utilizing it to drive a social, political agenda. And what I say, we've got to protect our water, we've got to be good stewards of our environment, there's no question. But what I say is let's get rid of the EPA altogether. Make sure that we have clean air and clean water. We can do that.
Mr. Gardner.
Getting rid of the EPA is the stupidest thing I've heard tonight. But the night is young. I'm an engineer and I take a practical approach to these things. Climate change is real. Climate change is real. But the source of that change is unclear. Dr. Broun is correct. There are lots of people who are not sure whether that change is as a result of man-made activity or whether it's just a result of we're in a period where the sun's a little warmer than usual. So we have to deal with climate change. We should take that into account in our planning, particularly in places along the coast where we might see water levels rise. But we can't wreck the economy over it. We've got to be sensible about it. And we can't let people who have agendas, I agree with Dr. Broun about that, we can't let people who have a hidden agenda control policy because they want some particular result.
Well, I worked my way through Georgia Tech on the co-op program, and I got a degree in chemistry, so I am a scientist. But I'm not a Luddite, and I'm not a denier. But clearly, the climate change science is not settled. But the important question to ask here is the balance, and I think that was the question, between environmental protection and the economy. And that's what we have to look at very closely. We can't torch a village to kill a gnat, and that's what this administration wants to do. And that's why I voted for a bill called the REINS Act, R-E-I-N-S is an acronym. So basically it says this. If any final rule is put in the Federal Register that costs the economy more than $100 million a year, it would not go into effect without a resolution of approval from the House and the Senate, and that's the way it should be.
I'm gonna answer that question real quick. Bring me proof like Copernicus, like Sir Newton, okay, like those guys, and then I'll listen to what you have to say. In the meantime, stop killing jobs. I want to do a review right quick. Remember, 8 years the Republicans did nothing to fix health care. Now they want to fix it, something they ain't got no business doing. Government does not create jobs. People like Ford, Carnegie, those are the types of people and the small businessmen. They create jobs. So we need government out of the way. And Mr. Gingrey wants us to take a pledge. When I hear one of them say that they will obey 100% of the Constitution 100% of the time, that person I will support. I want them to take that pledge because that is why we're in the situation that we're in today. And until we wake up and smell that coffee, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting.
Our next question is for Jack Kingston. It was prepared by a group of political science students at Columbus State University, and they asked, Congress has been debating immigration reform for years, and the idea appears dead in the Congress again this year. What is your position on comprehensive immigration reform and the various components of it?
Number one, no amnesty. Number two, border security, and keeping in mind that 40% of the people who are here illegally came with legal documents, but they let those documents expire. So border security doesn't just mean literally on the border, but it means within the interior. Number three, no welfare for illegal immigrants. And number four, cracking down on those who knowingly hire. Number five, enforcing existing laws and using some doggone common sense. Let me give you an example. If you're an illegal worker right now, you can claim the child tax credit because you don't have to verify your taxpayer ID number with your social security number. And one household in Indiana claimed 26 children. I've introduced legislation to repeal that. We're going to push it through, and when I'm a senator, we're going to make sure it's signed into law. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. That's a great question. You know, in business, you take a complicated question, you break it down into components. Until you get the first fundamental answer, you don't start trying to answer all 25 issues at the same time. That's one of the problems we have in Washington right now. In the meantime, nothing gets done. There was a proposal out a few months ago that had 1,000, 1,300 pages, whatever. That didn't solve the problem. We have a national security issue in this country. It's called our borders, not just with Mexico, but with Canada, our ports, airports. It's a dead serious issue. I believe that you've got to solve that right now. You can't leave it to the discretion of a department head, as has been proposed. And I believe right now that's one of the perfect examples of where bad government policy just keeps us kicking the can down the road. And that's why I think we need new blood in the United States Senate. Thank you.
Until we secure our borders, nothing else matters. And we have to enforce the laws. We've had 4 presidents, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, that have absolutely refused to enforce the laws and to secure the borders, which is in law today. And until we do that, nothing else matters. The only new law I'd like to see passed is one that makes English the official language of America. I've also introduced a House resolution that says no amnesty with any immigration reform. We have tried on the Republican side over and over again to stop illegal aliens from being able to get federal welfare, to get your money, federal largesse. But the Democrats have stopped us over and over and over again. Just like they have with most of the good legislation, virtually almost all the good legislation that Republicans have passed. Harry Reid is the obstructionist. Barack Obama is the obstructionist. We've got to get a Republican Senate and a Republican President, secure the borders, enforce the laws, and then we'll have comprehensive immigration reform.
Well, the engineer in me proposes a practical approach to this as well. We do need border security, but we have millions and millions of illegal aliens here, and we are not deporting them very fast at all. We're down to about 100,000 per year. We were doing it about 200,000 per year. Even when you collect illegal aliens and put them through the system, only about 45% of them end up getting deported. So when you say no amnesty, what you're saying is we're just going to let the rest of them here stay, and they're going to be illegal aliens, and we're not going to do anything about it. So my proposal is, first, secure the border. Second, offer registration, a form of residency to the ones that are here. If they register and pay tax, let them keep staying. If they don't register, then they're subject to deportation. That will cause them to say, wait a minute, I'll sign up and register so I don't run the risk of being deported. And by doing that, we'll convert them into taxpayers instead of just benefit recipients. We need to end the practice of having anchor babies considered citizens. And the only way that any of the illegals would earn citizenship is through military service. Thank you.
Of course, the Senate passed bill called for mandatory amnesty. And Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and Barack Obama have said they will accept nothing less. So they're not willing to sit down and discuss some of these issues like, how about mandatory e-verify, where an employer absolutely has to verify that the person that they're hiring is in this country legally. And that basically what you do then is you cut off this magnet, this attraction for people to come into this country illegally. And how about the fact that for years, I don't know how many, maybe going back to 1965, that we let on average a million immigrants in this country across the southern border every year. Well, why not base that, the number of immigrants, even legal immigrants that we bring into this country, on our employment rate? When we have an unemployment rate of 10%, does it make a whole lot of sense to bring in 1 million immigrants? Why not give those jobs to the hard-working men and women in this country who are struggling to support their families?
I don't want you to listen to the lies anymore. In 2006, we had the numbers. White House, Senate, House of Representatives. We still messed it up. So it's not about numbers, people. Ronald Reagan said, Washington won't fix itself. Now, I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Kingston said, but he had the situation outlined as to pretty much what the problem is. But why isn't it being dealt with? 3 reasons. 1, bad legislation continues to pass because that is the way they want it. People, the royals within both parties benefit from this. You know, we did amnesty before under Ronald Reagan. 2, we only find out about bad legislation after it passes. Can you say Edward Snowden? And 3, none of them up there in the room will name names. If they told you who was sticking it to you, you'd know who to take the trash out on.
Again, another area where there has been a fundamental lack of leadership. This has been a problem that has been growing for the past 2 decades. The hard truth here, ladies and gentlemen, is that Republicans had the House, the Senate, and the White House and failed to address these problems in a substantive, long-term way. We need to get serious about it. No amnesty. Enforce our laws. Stop apologizing for wanting to enforce our laws. Swift and severe consequences on both sides. Those who are here illegal and also on the employer side. Secure our borders. Fix the visa process. And let's have a concentrated effort on those areas of science, technology, engineering, and math so that we can start to draw down our reliance on foreign workers, build up those skill sets here in the United States. That's good for the American workforce, but it is not going to happen if we keep sending the same people up to Washington who have had every opportunity to do all of these things, and they haven't done it.
Candidates, it's now time for closing statements. You will each have 1 minute, and we'll begin with Congressman Broun.
I grieve for our nation because we're headed to an economic collapse if we don't stop this out-of-control government. It's left the bounds of the enumerated powers of our U.S. Constitution. I believe in this document. When I swore in the Marine Corps, I swore to uphold this Constitution. That's what I've done as a congressman. You can know where I'm going as your senator because you can see what I've been doing as a U.S. Congressman. Everything that they say that they will do, I've been doing. Every single candidate up here, except for me, has proposed policy that is outside the Constitution as our founding fathers did it. They all have proposed policy that is that big government policy. Policy that causes out of control government. It's got to stop. And I want you to join me to rein in this out of control big government, to restore fiscal sanity in Washington, fight for liberty and freedom, try to control, or help me control, this out of control government by voting Paul Broun for the U.S. Senate. I'm fighting for liberty, I'm fighting for you and your children and your grandchildren. Paul Broun, U.S. Senate.
Well, all of the other candidates on this stage would tell you that they are more conservative than I am. And they're right. But they don't get it. We don't need the most conservative nominee in this election. We need a nominee who will get the most votes. We need a nominee who will appeal to the middle well. We cannot concede the middle and win a lot of elections. So, if you want a right winger, these other candidates are your person. If you're looking for somebody who's more of a mainstream candidate, that would be me. I can win this election. I can help us move to where we need to be in this party, which is a little more towards the middle. That's the spot. We have got to find a way to control the middle, or we're going to start losing elections. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. And I practiced medicine for 32 years. And that doesn't count 4 years in medical school. I've been a member of the House of Representatives now for 11 and a half years. You do the math. I am a professional physician. I'm not a professional politician. But I do care about the people of Georgia, all 10 million of you. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being in the House of Representatives. And I've become a little frustrated lately voting time after time after time to try to get the policy right, not worry about the politics. But I am going to go to the Senate, and I'm going to take that fight. I'm going to run to the fight, not away from it. The battle is not done. We have got to take over the Senate. This is probably the most important election in our lifetimes. And tee this up for winning the presidency in 2016, because this president is destroying this country. He's taken us down the road of socialism. You know that. So when some of these candidates say that the members of Congress that are running for the Senate are professional politicians, don't believe them. I'm a professional physician that wants to help you in the United States Senate. Thank you. God bless you.
Grayson2014.com is my website. Let me make it plain. In 7 debates, I have not heard one single person on this stage, other than myself, acknowledge that they will honor, obey, and protect 100% of the Constitution, 100% of the time. You want to know why? Because they know they won't. When they want to repeal and replace Obamacare, violating the Constitution. They don't want to be hung like George Bush Sr. was when he said, read my lips, no new taxes. If you send me to D.C., I'm going to empower you. I don't want you to empower me. And when I go, I'm taking 100% of the Constitution with me. I will name names. I will warn you before the legislation passes, and I will enable you to be able to identify those that need to go home. This is what we need. And therefore, since nobody has vowed to obey 100% of the Constitution, I won't be voting for any one of them. I'll write myself in if it comes down to that. I will not be complicit in destroying this country. The revolution gave us our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. It was the Emancipation Proclamation that gave us, the black man, their freedom. Do you think I'm going to give it away to these folk who keep violating us? No.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. On May 20th, we have 2 considerations. One, who can be an effective, unwavering conservative